Hey friends, welcome to Gardening with Creekside. Today we are going to do a little bit of a garden tour in the fact of we just experienced, like I think the rest of the entire country just about, the Arctic blast that came through beginning last week. It's been right at a week. It hit us on Friday and we had some crazy wind gust all through on Friday. That was the 23rd. We had really cold temperatures. We got down to 7 degrees one night, then it was like 11, then it was 13, then it's been in the 20s. So for North Carolina, remember we are North Carolina, a zone 7B. So for us, a 7-degree night is pretty rare and it is pretty cold. And so when we have that cold temperature coupled with that extreme wind and those wind gusts, we had some damage with our plants in our gardens. So I thought it would be really helpful for us just to walk through the gardens and to show you what that damage looks like, because especially if you're in a similar growing zone that I am, then this might be helpful for you when you're out in your garden to help identify what the problem is and then how are we going to tackle that problem. So that is what we're going to do. We're going to walk through. Overall, the garden did really, really well. We have not had a ton of damage, but there is definitely some noticeable plants that are in shock or suffering that I want to share with you. First of all, we're right here, we're right on the edge of the garage, and I have these two urns from Unique Stone. And in each of these urns, I have, because there's one on this side and then there's one on the other side, I have Lenten roses or a hellebore. These were stunning. I mean, they were nice and full. The other one actually has a flower bud on it, and they were just doing great, gorgeous. These are wonderful, hardy perennials, but clearly it has suffered a good bit of damage. I think most of it has to do with the wind and not necessarily the cold, because these are very cold tolerant. But you can see, I mean, they are just absolutely limpy. There's not much that I can do about this. I have watered them to make sure that the water is not the problem. It's not. I didn't think it was because the soil was nice and moist, but I went ahead and watered them anyway. They are still very sad looking. I'm just going to leave them alone. There's nothing that I can do to, quote, resurrect them. I don't think that they're dead, but I do think I will probably lose this foliage. I don't know if this in the middle will perk up, but we're just going to wait and see. So if you have Lenten roses, especially, you know, plants that were in containers, and if they were on the north facing side of your property, for us that wind was coming straight out of the north, and north is directly behind Jerry and just coming and just hit these poor plants. So that is what is going on with the Lenten roses. Coming around, my eucharis, like I have some in this container, gorgeous, right? Just a beautiful container. Perennial grasses. A lot of my eucharis look like this, very kind of limped over. They just look, if you didn't know better, you would say that they're dry. If it was the summertime, I'd say, oh my gosh, you need to get some water on those. But this is just, it's not dry. It's damp. They're very soft and very tender. We're going to leave everything alone. You're going to notice that theme as we go through. Leave it alone. There's not much you can do right now. I do find, you know, everything else right in here is doing well. Like, look at these pitcher plants. You know, there's a little bit on the tips are a little bit burnt, but these pitcher plants, which I think of as like tropical plants, yes, there's a little burn damage on the top, but down in there, they're doing just fine. So, you know, all is well, no problem. But you can see over here, talking about those Lenten roses, these are in the ground, obviously, and they're on a different side because they're behind the house, and so they're not nearly as damaged, right? So they have a little bit of a limp to them, but they're not anywhere nearly as bad as those other ones. So that just kind of gives you an idea of, you know, things that are in the ground versus in a container. There is a big difference. I do want to share with you the things that I was most concerned about were my camellias, because I knew just the fact that it being 7 degrees, let alone the wind, 7 degrees for camellias is probably not the best idea. So what I did is I did go ahead and cover my camellias. I still have a bunch that are over here that are not planted yet. I just removed this frost protection blanket. This is, you can get them in different thicknesses for different degrees. And so I just took this whole thing and laid it over. It gave it enough of a buffer for my camellias. I think they're just fine. Euchres still are just really limpy. Not that they're dead, but it could be that that foliage is gone. And then over here with these 2 camellias that were in the ground, I took my unique stone burlap bags. We get these when we get orders of unique stone in. That's how they package all the materials, is using tons and tons of burlap bags. That's why we give them away here at the nursery. So what I do is I split it open on the long side, so I actually have a little bit of a hood. And so I took it and I covered my camellias like that. And so I have 2 of these early wonders right here. I just took these off today, so almost a week later. And yes, my buds, my flowers that were there, they are burnt, right? That is not a problem. If that's the worst thing that happens, then I'm okay. But my foliage looks really nice, so these were protected. Another thing is they were behind these tea olives. So the tea olives took the brunt of the wind coming in. Speaking of the tea olives, can you tell they have kind of a bronzy hue to them? They are kind of a coppery color. That's not their normal color. They are normally a nice kind of a glossy green. Again, this is all damage. So we will wait and see. I suspect that all of these brown leaves will fall off. Are my plants dead? No, not at all. We pruned these back in late spring, and so that will be a good time to really assess and prune it back, and then come this summer, they will flush back out with new foliage. But definitely these tea olives took a hit, and then even my azaleas right here took a hit. They are going to be naturally, these azaleas, these are encores, and they naturally have a little bit of a copper color, but they're a little extreme. Hopefully I have not lost any of my blooms for the springtime. We will just see. What I am really amazed about, and like a really good thing, is look at my gardenias. Now gardenias, we are sometimes on the border of being too cool for a gardenia. These are Chuck Hayes, and Chuck Hayes are my favorite gardenia because they do so well in our climate. There is no burn on these gardenias. They have done really, really well. And I will say too, we have a couple of the proven winners, Steady As She Goes. They are in my little secret stash. We're going to plant them down here, hopefully sometime soon. But they are an improved version of the Chuck Hayes. They too look amazing. No burn on them, did not cover them, and did really, really well as far as that goes. Now, the patio is a little bit torn up right now because Jerry was pressure washing the stone, and I think tomorrow he's going to try to put the sealant on it. So if you're like, Jenny, why is all your furniture in the garden? Well, that's why. Down here, everything has done well. Now, the echinacea is totally fried, right? Is it dead? I very seriously doubt that it is. If this drives you crazy on your echinacea, you can come in here and just totally cut it back. The birds do like to eat the little seeds off of your echinacea, so you can leave that. There is some green down in this one, but if it does drive you crazy, you could go ahead and prune that down to the ground and it wouldn't hurt anything at all. But the trees are doing great. Oh, let me show you one that is not doing so great. I really hope that I haven't lost it. If I do lose it, I do have an extra one that's been hanging out in the greenhouse. This sweet thing. So this is, I got this from my mom. This is an Americana agave. And this is one of the rare agaves that is hardy in zone 7. Well, it's supposed to be hardy, but you can see that it just, I mean, it is melted down. We may not lose it because this center is still nice and upright. And I do have pups around it. Pups are what you call the little baby offshoots of an agave. But my mom's, whose is probably 3 times as large as this, I mean, hers is huge. Hers looks the exact same way. I did not even think about this plant with the weather, and it never even crossed my mind to come in here and cover it. But like this little pup right here, I think is doing pretty good because this protected it when it came down. But again, we're gonna wait and see. I'm not gonna cut it back. I'm just gonna leave it alone. Butterfly bushes. Woo-wee. So this is a pugster, and it is looking rough for sure. You may be tempted to go ahead and prune back your butterfly bushes. Don't do it. We want to wait until springtime. And when you start to see new green growth, whether it's at the very, very bottom or if it's on the stem, then that's when we're going to prune it. We do not want to prune these now. I know like panicle hydrangeas, sure, go ahead and prune them, not a problem. Even though the butterfly bushes bloom on new growth, we don't want to prune them now. We want to just let them be. They're going to look a little rough, especially getting down to 7 degrees. Just leave them alone. Come spring, you see some growth, then you can trim. But yeah, that was one of those that I was like, oh my goodness, I actually saw my mama's first. I was driving by and I was like, oh no. Like hers just looked awful. And I was like, well, I bet if hers looks that bad, then mine's definitely gonna look that bad as well. Everything here did great. The magnolia did well. Very happy with that. North is right here. So this is north, and that wind was blowing straight this way. I mean, massive gust. It was really rough. And so I think a lot of that damage that we have with our plants comes from that cold wind gust, because it was like, Jerry, it was like what, 2 o'clock in the afternoon, it was already like in the 20s. I mean, it was, the sun's out or whatever, and it was bad. The phenomenal. So somebody was just asking me, so here we are talking about damage. You can see I have a Daisy May right there that has some damage, right? Look at these phenomenals. These are phenomenal lavender. I have struggled with lavender. I have shared that with you. I tried lavender so many different ways, and it was just awful, and they just did terrible. Well, Kata, our sweet friend from Walter's Gardens, and she lives in North Carolina. She was like, Jenny, I want you to try phenomenal because it does really well here in the South. Yeah, it sure does. So I have 2 on this side, I have 3 on the other side, and they are stunning. Absolutely gorgeous. This is not on irrigation, but this is in red clay soil. So if you're like, but I have clay and it holds moisture. Well, I do too, and that's always been my problem, but Phenomenal has done really, really well. Love this plant for sure. It is in winter. I do want to show you though, this is one of our other tea olives. You might be able to see, and if Jerry can show you, there's tons of leaves already on the ground. So it is already dropping the leaves that were damaged. And if you see like bare spots on the stem, that's where it's losing those leaves. This got a lot of damage to it. I have never pruned this tea olive because it's just in a good spot. It can just grow as much as it wants, but you can really see, like on this side, look how naked it is right here. See how thin, and you can see all the way in? That's because of the damage. Those leaves just got burned all the way off, and they have just fallen to the ground. Again, did it kill the plant? I really suspect it did not whatsoever. So come spring, I'm gonna trim this up and give it a little shot of fertilizer. It will be just fine. Interestingly enough, this is what's so interesting about your garden. You can have the same plant in different locations in your garden, and they do different things. So we have tea olives right here. We have tea olives back there that we just showed you. Guess what? No damage on these tea olives whatsoever. Like, what in the world? It is crazy, but there is No, if there's some burn, it's on the very tip tops of them, but for the most part, the foliage here is just gorgeous. It's fantastic. So these are doing great. I've had people ask about pansies and violas, and they're like, Jenny, they look terrible. What do I do? Well, guess what, honey? Mine are in the same boat. They look terrible too. It just got so cold. They're not dead. They're alive. We're just gonna leave them alone. In like 2 days, it's gonna be 65, close to 70 degrees. They'll perk back up. They'll be okay. Just hang in there. One of the things that I was concerned about, gosh, late in the afternoon on that Friday, I came to that window, just happened to look out, and I was like, our horseman is leaning. So I don't know if Jerry can get quite the angle to show you, but our horseman is leaning in that direction. And I think it was a combination of two things. One, the wind. Again, north is right here. It was coming and it was just pushing this tree in that direction. So you had the big, huge gust of wind, but also we have notoriously wet, damp winters here in North Carolina, and this winter has been no different. We have gotten a good bit of rain, so this soil was really wet. So you have wet soil that is loose, major winds that just is pushing, and it's pushing that tree. So we will come back in and pull it back. I have to get Jerry to help me. We'll stake it up and pull it back. This has been here for 3 years. I think it's been here for 3 years, and loves the spot. And this is the first time we have ever had any problems with the horseman. But yeah, I was like, oh, it's one of those things where you really can't do anything about it at that time. But I was, oh, but it's okay. It'll be fine. Everybody will be fine. We're gonna walk down here and we're gonna go to the berm because we have got some pretty significant damage with our plants at the berm. And on our way, I wanna stop in and show you, give you an update on the plants that we planted in late summer, early fall down here. So this area, of course, the creek is just like 10 feet. It is just right there. And one of the plants that we planted, this is a camellia. This is snowbells, I want to say. It does not look like a camellia, but it is a camellia. It's a weeping camellia. And you can see in here that there is some damage to the leaves. You see some little brown spots, little black spots. And actually, when I came down here earlier today, I had limbs that they were all stuck in this direction. It does have buds on it, but we have some foliage that looks really good. I think it's gonna be okay. This is one that I was worried about, but I knew that even if I tried to cover it, it's the size and then the wind, it was just not gonna do well at all. Lemony lace elderberry. Look at this. It has got little swells all over it. It, of course, is deciduous, and so it's dropped all of its leaves. But look at that good growth. So promise there that they're doing well and are nice and alive and very happy, as is, this is the Tough Stuff hydrangea. So it is doing well too. So it helps when things are dormant, because we've had multiple freezes before this 7 degree. This was not like we were at 70 one day and 7 the next. We had multiple freezes, low 20s several times. So things were dormant. On the house side of the berm, everything did really well. Again, none of this got covered because of the wind. Direction again, north is this way, so the wind was really kind of coming in this direction. I've got camellias right here. I've got 3 of the Southern Living camellias. They look beautiful. They're great. Not a problem whatsoever. Nice, really glossy foliage, no sign of damage whatsoever. These were not covered, but they were on this kind of this backside of the berm behind the north poles, the fence, the plants in the front, everything coming down this way, maybe a little bit more protected, and they did well. The azaleas here did really well. So there was no damage on this side of the fence. On this side of the berm, everybody has done well. Those azaleas will naturally have that beautiful dark burgundy foliage in the wintertime. Come summertime, spring, they turn nice and green. Now, let's go on the other side of the berm, because this is where we had some damage, and I don't know if things are alive or if they're not alive. So for example, and it might be kind of hard to see in the sun, but here we have the pink carpet azaleas from Proven Winners. This one looks really nice. You can see that, right? Nice, really pretty foliage. But then these two, not quite as glossy green. And then the lower petalums. These are the Jazz Hands Bold from Proven Winners. They don't look very good. Like, Jerry, can you show them that one? Not good at all. I honestly do not know if these are alive or dead. Time will tell. And then you come up and you have one where it clearly has had some damage, but it's not as bad. I mean, these plants are 4 or 5 feet apart from one another. The honeysuckle did really well. So the honeysuckle here, doing great. But look at my poor sweet talker viburnum. All of this foliage, all these leaves are dead. So they're completely fried. We were just here, what was it, like a week, 10 days before the freeze hit, and we talked about how gorgeous they were. Just this beautiful red color. All of this has been fried. Again, are they dead? Are they alive? I don't really know. Is there anything I can do for them? No, time will tell. So we're just gonna sit on them, wait, see what happens, but I suspect that every single one of these leaves is gonna fall off. We're just gonna leave them alone and see what they do. And then up here with these lower petalums, they too, I mean, they just got fried. And I think it was probably a little bit more the wind. This one especially is probably the one that looks the absolute worst. But there's nothing we can do about it. The pine took it like a champ, held on great. And then of course the hydrangeas could care less because they're dormant, as is the Russian sage. Nice and dormant, sedum's dormant. Everybody's good as far as that goes, and we don't have to worry about it. So if you have damage from either the temperatures or the wind, the best thing I can say is you're just gonna have to hold on. You're just gonna have to wait. A lot of these plants are a lot tougher than what we think, and it's their natural defense to first say, oh, I have damage, I'm under stress, I'm gonna drop my leaves, but my roots are still alive. The plant may not be dead, it's gonna get set back some. So as long as you're okay with that, then it's fine. We just wait till spring comes, wait till that new foliage pops out, and then we'll just take it from there. Of course, I will keep you updated. So come spring, when we're assessing and looking at things, and I'll say, okay, these lower petalums, yes, they're still alive, but this is what we're gonna do. Or the sweet talker, this is what you need to do to help, make it bounce back faster. So if you have damage, just hang in there. It is part of life. That was one thing though, with this weather, we are absolutely zero in control of that. There was absolutely nothing I could do. I knew that I could cover those camellias in the back. That's what I did. Everything else was out of my control. That is gardening. So if I lose a plant, I'll replace it. And if not, then we'll just problem solve and figure out the best way to make them happy and healthy come the next growing seasons. As always, thanks so much for growing with Creekside. Y'all have a great day. We'll see you in the next video. Bye, friends.